Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. My in-laws were going to come over for a simple dinner. We, her parents, her sister and her husband, and ourselves had been getting together like this for 15 years. As always, she chose the fancy restaurant that I knew would make my credit card want to cry. But I never said anything bad. What I had always done was back up her decisions. When she said we had to come separately, I should have known something was wrong. She told him that morning, "I need to run some errands. I'll see you there." They were already sitting down and laughing when I got there, with glasses of wine in their hands. When they saw me, the laughter stopped all of a sudden. Her mother gave her a tight smile, her father gave her a short nod, and her sister looked away and became interested in the menu. I felt like a rock in a stream as the talk went around me. Work stories, family rumors, and inside jokes were all carefully chosen to leave me out. After all these years, I was used to it. As I waited for the meal to end, I took sips of water and nodded when it was time. She cleared her throat when the dessert menus came out. There was silence at the table. She took something out of her designer purse that looked like an official document, but I didn't know the company letterhead. She said in an extremely loud voice, "I've been doing some accounting. Putting your trust in someone for 15 years is a long time." The paper was moved across the table to me by her. "For years of giving, you owe me something." I couldn't believe what I saw on the paper. It was carefully laid out like a statement, with a list of services and the amounts that go with them. $25,000 to move for your job. $58,500 for cooking dinner 3 times a week for 15 years. $45,000 to help you move up in your job. The list went on, and at the very end, there was an unbelievable number. Her family laughed out loud. The girl's dad hit the table, her mom rubbed her eyes, and her sister took out her phone to take a picture of my face. She said with a smile, "Be thankful it's only this much. It's possible for me to charge interest." More laughs. When the waiter felt the stress, he quietly moved away from our table. There were eyes on me everywhere in the restaurant, waiting for me to do something. With care, I folded the bill up and put it in the pocket of my jacket. Being the cool, sensible person for years had made me ready for this moment. I didn't scream. I didn't get angry and leave. I just smiled a little and asked for the bill. She asked, "Don't you have anything to say?" because she was unhappy that I didn't say anything. I said, "Not tonight," and signed the dinner bill carefully. "I will, though." As her family laughed behind us as we walked to the parking lot, she grabbed my arm. She hissed, "It was just a joke. Everything you do is always so important to you." I took her hand off of my arm very gently. I said in a low voice that some jokes tell the truth. Also, some bills need to be looked over more carefully before they are paid. As I drove home by myself, her bill was burning a hole in my pocket. I felt like something solidified inside me. This wasn't just about making fun of tonight. It had been about 15 years of small concessions, protests that were sucked down, and one-sided sacrifices that were not seen or recognized. When I got to our empty house, she had already gone out with her family for drinks after dinner. I went right to my office at home. The file cabinet where I kept our financial papers was open. It was my turn to do some accounts. I spent the whole night going through our money papers. There are bank statements, tax returns, land deeds, and investment portfolios from 15 years of marriage. They told a story that was very different from the one she told at dinner. When we met, I had already made a name for myself in my field, while she was dealing with debt from a degree she never finished. I paid off that $42,000 debt in our first year together and never brought it up again. I didn't want her to feel like she owed me anything. That was the first thing I did wrong. Even though the mortgage is in both of our names, I paid all of the money for the down payment with my own savings. I paid for the improvements she insisted on, the designer furniture, and the landscaping in my backyard that cost more than my first car. Her paychecks went to pay for her own things. I thought back to the dream job offer I turned down 7 years ago because it meant moving to a different state. She said her job was too important to move, so she didn't. But after 3 months, she quit that important job to find herself. She didn't go back to full-time work after that. Then there were the 3 times I helped her start businesses, the boutique that closed after 8 months, the online coaching service that never got a single client, and the lifestyle blog that she stopped writing about after the initial excitement wore off. Each time, my salary and savings helped her through the failures. As the sun came up, I switched from working on business documents to looking at pictures and emails. Our wedding, where her family promised to help but didn't, the holidays I planned and saved for in secret for months, and the last-minute trip to Paris for her birthday were all surprises. The expensive and careful anniversary gifts were different from the gift cards she usually gave me. It wasn't just money that I gave up. It made me think of the weekends I spent with her family while my parents, who are both dead now, only got visits during the holidays. I had lost friends because she thought my friends were boring or not cool enough for us. I gave up my hobbies because they took time away from meeting her needs. There was something wrong with me, but I had given more than I had taken. By noon, I had made my own notebook, not because I was petty, but because I needed to be clear. My bill wasn't meant to make me look bad in public like hers was. That day was a wake-up call for me after years of being lied to and put down. She texted me, "Hope you're not still mad about last night. Staying with my sister to give you space was just a joke. Love you." She didn't say sorry or recognize how her joke made me feel. Just a relaxed, no thanks, and a promise of love that didn't feel any stronger than our wedding vows. I didn't answer. But I dug deeper instead. I looked at our joint accounts, credit card bills, and other parts of our finances that I had trusted her to handle. I found the first mistake at that point. A monthly move to a bank account I didn't know. Small amounts that keep coming in over years add up to a big amount. I found more things by following this post. Cards with hidden cash. Unknown cash withdrawals. Designer items were hidden in food bills. What began as a list of the things I had done turned into something else entirely, a study. What have I given to this marriage is no longer the question. What has she been hiding from me? I thought that the answers would cost her a lot more than she could charge me. A lot of new things were found and quiet investigations went on for 3 days. She stayed with her sister and sent her sister a few texts here and there asking when she could come home without any trouble. She asked me to give it some time to think. She saw this as proof that I was weak and even called me emotionally fragile in a text message to her mom that got sent through our shared iPad by mistake. She had no idea that I was making a case by carefully writing down every financial lie I found. What I found was just the start of the strange story. Because I knew a lot about money, I followed the money trail like a bloodhound looking for a smell. I found out that she had been renting a different apartment downtown for the past 2 years. It was a fancy 1-bedroom that cost $2,800 a month. We paid rent with money from our shared account, but it looked like costs for an investment property. There was a house, but it wasn't an investment. It was her secret life. The credit card statements showed that I bought a lot of things at men's shops, like expensive watches, cologne, and clothes that weren't my size. Restaurant bills for 2 people at small, cozy places on nights she said she was working late or out with the girls. It was never discussed or explained why hotel prices in our city were so high. I called our bank and asked to see pictures of the checks. There, I found many checks that she had written to cash with my fake name on them. Not just once or twice, but over and over again for years. It's been small enough that I haven't noticed, but the total is over $70,000. The most shocking thing we learned was from our tax reports. It had been going on for 5 years that she was making up fake business losses, hospital bills, and donations to charities. It was because of these false claims that we got large returns. Refunds that went straight to her secret accounts. I talked to a friend who is an attorney in private, being careful not to give away our names. He confirmed what I already thought. Even though I didn't know about her actions, tax theft could get us both in a lot of trouble with the law. I trusted that those tax returns were correct when I signed them. The emotional truths hurt just as much. From our cloud backup, we were able to read text messages where she made fun of me, whined about how boring I was, and bragged about how she had taught me to do whatever she wanted. She wrote in a very sharp exchange, "He thinks he's so smart about his career, but he can't even see what's going on right under his nose." At least she was right about that. I didn't see it. Up until now. On the third night, she called instead of texting while I put together my proof into clear, unarguable pieces. Her voice was different, it was softer and more friendly. She said, "I miss you. We want to make things right with you and my family. We should have dinner tomorrow. This time it's my treat. I'm sorry, but the joke got too far." The apology seemed like it was practiced, and the offer seemed odd. It was just what I needed, though. Another dinner, a new group of people to talk to, and another chance to change the story. "That sounds good," I answered, making her feel as warm as I felt. "That sounds good to me." As soon as the call ended, I finished getting my papers ready by scanning, organizing, and making backup copies that I kept in 3 different places. It wasn't just about keeping my money safe anymore. It was my job to protect the truth. When I checked our home security system, the last piece fit together. The cameras she demanded be put up for safety caught her letting strangers into our house while I was away at work. The video was clearly marked with a date and time. I felt eerily calm as I put everything for tomorrow's dinner into a small suitcase. The shock and pain had turned into something stronger and more clear. I wasn't after payback. I wanted justice and to be set free. Tomorrow night would be the start of the real accounting. The place she picked for our dinner to make things right was even fancier than the last one. It was clear that this was meant to impress me. I got there early with my briefcase and talked to the boss alone. A big tip made sure we had a private eating area and service that didn't stop when I called. I asked for her favorite bubbly to be brought to the table in a bottle. I didn't do it because I was feeling happy, but because I wanted to set the right mood. The right props were needed for this show. They got back together again. Mom, Dad, sister, brother-in-law, and her. Compared to the last time, they came in more quietly this time, but I could still see them knowing looks at each other. They had talked about me, chosen how to approach me, and were ready for whatever weak response they thought I would give them. She kissed my face and said, "You look nice." Like nothing had happened. It was a new dress that I had never seen her in. Without a doubt, another secret buy. Her parents uncomfortably nodded, making it clear that they had been told to behave better. As we got comfortable, I told them, I needed some time to think about everything. "Your bill made me think about the years we've spent together." "That silly thing." Her mother spoke up and forced a laugh. "We should not have pushed her." Her sister added that it was just for fun. "You already know how she is. Always exciting." I smiled and served drinks for everyone. I'm glad she did it, in fact. It made me think about our marriage in terms of money. Very interesting. Her dad raised an eyebrow, clearly confused by how calm I was. He said, "Well, that's a mature way to look at it," sounding almost upset that I wasn't hurt more. The first dish was a fancy seafood platter that cost more than a good pair of shoes. As they got to talking, they talked about safe things like the weather, a family wedding coming up, and the work being done on her folks' vacation home. I didn't take part much. Instead, I watched how they left me out of inside jokes and gave me the silent eye roll when I spoke. Being cut off all the time when I was trying to help. These relationships were not new. They had lived there for 15 years. I just thought of them as the price I paid for being a part of her family. Her dad raised his glass when the main meal came out. He made a big announcement about putting bad jokes behind us. Also, to my son-in-law, who is more of a sport than we thought. All of them raised their glasses and smiled at me as if they were being kind. Please forgive me for being angry about being embarrassed in public. What kind people they are. In fact, I said, putting my glass down. I have a different toast to make. I picked up my suitcase and put it on the chair next to me that wasn't being used. To being open and honest with your money. Her smile got shaky. What do you mean? I carefully said, your bill made me think of all the times we've put money into each other over the years. I thought it was only fair to look over the whole record. She quickly looked at her family and said, we don't need to do this now. It's a nice dinner. Like when you brought us our bill while we were having a nice dinner. I gave a fair answer. Do not worry. I've also got something special ready. There was a noticeable change in the air. Her brother-in-law, who is always the smartest person in the group, sat up straight. The look on her dad's face toughened into the rude one I knew so well. Her mother said, if this is your way of getting back at her. There's no real need for it. Everyone knows that marriage is a two-way street. You are totally right. I agreed and opened my bag. Take and give. We should talk about what was given and what was taken. This makes no sense. My wife lost it, and the act of healing started to fall apart. I said I was sorry for the joke. Not at all. I gently told her off. You said you were sorry that the joke made me mad. There's a change. The first folder was taken out of my bag and set down on the table. But that's not really the point of tonight. So what was it about? Her father asked, his patience clearly wearing thin. When I answered, I looked right at my wife. This has been going on for about 15 years, and now the bill is due. It was like dealing cards in a game where I finally knew all the rules when I opened the first box and put the papers in a neat order. To begin, let us look at the basics. I said as I looked at bank statements that had transactions marked. For the past 4 years, $1,500 has been sent to an account every month that I didn't know about. That adds up to $72,000. Her face lost all of its color, but she quickly got it back. That's where I keep my own cash. Saving money is fine. I agree with everything. After answering, I set down the lease deal. This isn't a bank account, though. It's the account you use to rent this downtown flat for $2,800 a month. And place that is only in your name and that you never told me about. Her dad frowned and leaned forward. Which apartment? Your house is lovely. I said, that's what I thought too. Until I came across this. It was easy to find the receipts for men's clothes, meal bills, and hotel fees because they were all arranged by date. With wide eyes, her sister took one of the papers. This is from February 14th. You said you were sick at home that night. My wife hissed as she tried to get the papers together, this is an invasion of privacy. These are the costs I have for myself. I fixed it, paid for with our joint funds. The money you said was going to family interests. The same thing you said on our tax forms. Her dad's face changed from being confused to worried. File your taxes. Yes, I said as I pulled out copies of our tax returns. She has been claiming large gifts to charities we never made, business costs for a consulting firm that doesn't exist, and medical costs we never had for the past 5 years. The returns, which added up to more than $35,000, went straight into the same secret account. There was silence at the table. When her mom reached for her water glass, her hand was shaking. This is crazy, my wife finally said. He's making this up because a simple joke hurt his pride. I agreed that would be a lot of information. Good thing I don't have to make anything up. There is enough proof to go on. When the IRS asked her about our taxes, I printed out copies of emails they sent back and forth. These answers were signed by you instead of me. That's not honest. Her brother-in-law, who worked in finance, looked at one of the tax forms and groaned. He said almost to himself, "This is serious. Things are getting worse." I kept going and carefully showed proof of the fake checks. Over $70,000 was taken out over time with my fake signature. The credit card bills that show items that were made but never brought into our home. The images of the texts she sent to her friends making fun of me. As more information came out, her family's faces changed from doubt to shock to clear disbelief. Her mom began to cry in silence. Her dad's face had turned a scary shade of red. Then there's this. Finally, I said, setting down a small USB drive on the table. Video from our home cameras for safety. The video I made is just a highlight reel of the guests you had while I was away on business. She whispered, "Don't you dare," as her voice broke. I told her I wouldn't play it here. I'm not interested in being embarrassed in public like you are. But it's real, and everything else backs it up. When her sister turned to look at her, she looked horrified. "Is this true?" "Everything." She said, "He's twisting things," but her voice didn't sound like she really believed it. "Taking everything out of its proper place." "Context," I said again. "Like how you're hiding all of this while giving me a fee for your sacrifices. Like making fun of me in front of your family for years while lying to me all the time." In my bag, I closed it. "I've spent 15 years being the punchline of your jokes, the thing you look down on, and the reason you live the way you do. Not anymore." Her dad, who had been quiet for most of my talk, finally found the words to say something. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What do you want?" "Cash." I laughed. A real laugh that made everyone look startled. "You don't need anything from me. Just want you to know the truth. To know for sure who you've been laughing with and at for years." There were several $100 bills on the table when I got up to pay for the meal. "This is the last payment on my bill." Just as I turned to leave, she started to cry. Not soft, caring tears that are meant to manipulate, but ugly, scared sobs of someone whose carefully built world is falling apart. Those tears. They were worth a lot of money. When her dad called my name, I was almost to the door. It had been 15 years since he had used it much. He liked son, him, or nothing at all. But now he said it quickly, which made me stop and think. He said, his one strong voice shaking, "You can't just drop this bomb and walk away." I looked at the scene I was leaving behind as I turned around. Her mother wiped her tears with a fancy napkin, her sister stared at the proof with horrified interest, her brother-in-law looked at his hands in a strange way, and her father stood there with his fists clenched. And in the middle is my wife. With her flawless makeup running down her face, she lost her cool. I calmly responded, "Yes, I can. There's nothing left for me to say." Her mother asked in a soft, unsure voice, "What will happen now?" The next thing that happened was already planned. I moved my share of our joint accounts to a new bank before dinner. My lawyer was told to file for divorce first thing in the morning tomorrow. Our house's locks had been changed. Her access to our financial accounts had been blocked until the case was over with in court. Yet, they didn't need to know those specifics. "Now things are real," I answered simply. "Things have effects." My wife jumped forward and grabbed my arm with shocking force. She hissed, "You can't do this to me," in a low voice that people in the nearby restaurant wouldn't be able to hear, but it was loud enough for me to know she was desperate. "What do you think this will do to me? To my good name? What's next?" I thought I saw real fear in her eyes for a moment. Fear of losing everything I had given them, not fear of losing me. The way of life, the safety, and the front she had put up for herself. I told her, "I didn't do this to you, and gently took her hand off my arm. You hurt yourself. You chose to keep every secret account, fake signature, and lie. As you teased me behind my back or used my confidence against me, you were building up to this point. When her dad walked up, he was angry, but he had something on his face that looked a lot like respect. He said in a lower voice, "There must be a way to handle this privately. That would be some kind of plan. Both good for each other." I immediately got what he was trying to say. He could get paid to keep this secret, protect the family name, and keep his daughter from having to deal with the consequences of her deeds. I told him I wasn't interested in getting even or making money. I just want my life back, the one I put on hold for 15 years while I met her needs and put up with your general disdain. We never met, her mom said first. I cut you off, which surprised me with how straight I was. You all did. It was always being said that I wasn't good enough for her, through jokes, eye rolls, and other things. You really meant everything you said. I wasn't argued with by anyone. When I told you the truth out loud, it seemed to float between us. The proof was being looked at very carefully by her sister before she finally looked up at me. You didn't seem to care about how things were, that's what I always thought. Oh, I see, that was my mistake. Acceptance does not always mean silence. Sometimes it's just getting proof. The woman and her family had made fun of my simple watch because they thought it wasn't fancy enough. It was now time for me to end this part of my life. I told them that they would be turned in tomorrow. My lawyer will get in touch with you. Everything will be done in a fair and proper way. I don't want to hurt you. I only want to be free of you. What about me? My wife asked with a weak voice. In what direction should I go? I smiled to myself a little. I think you have a room in the city center. From what I've learned, it's a pretty nice one. As I finally walked away, I could hear her family asking her angry and confused questions. The story had permanently changed. No longer was I the funny part of their family joke. I took big breaths outside in the cool night air for what seemed like years. How much weight I had. Always trying to make people happy who can't be happy and gain respect from people who can't give it. It was no longer possible to love someone who saw me as nothing more than a property to be used. I walked into that diner as someone's husband or son-in-law, ready to fight back. I left as myself. I feel free and excited about tomorrow for the first time in 15 years. You are welcome to click on them. I look forward to seeing you in the next story. Have a nice day.